Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar on developing an effective Medtech regulatory strategy in 2024. My name is Sara Romeo, and I am Senior Regulatory Affairs Manager at Alira Health. I am here with my colleague and co-presenter, Irati Mendia. We will start the webinar shortly. So welcome to our webinar on developing an effective Medtech regulatory strategy in 2024. I am Sara Romeo, Senior Regulatory Affairs Manager at Alira Health, and I'm joined by my colleague Irati Mendia. Before we begin, I'll give you a few quick notes. All participants are mute. The webinar will take 45 minutes plus 15 minutes for questions. Thanks to those who submitted questions during registration. We try to address them with our presentation. You can still submit questions during the webinar using the toolbar anytime. You don't need to wait until the end. We will answer them during the Q&A, and if we don't, we will answer them via email. The webinar is being recorded, and you'll receive a link to the recording afterwards. Lastly, I would like to introduce the organizers of today's webinar, Alira Health. Alira Health is a global healthcare firm whose mission is to humanize healthcare and life science in partnerships with patients. We provide consulting and clinical services enabled by technology and real-world evidence. We complement the expertise of our pharma, biotech, and medtech clients from development to medical care with a full spectrum of services across their entire solutions lifecycle. This said, let me introduce myself and my co-presenter. As said, my name is Sara Romeo, and I am Senior Manager Regulatory Affairs at Alira Health. Before Alira Health, I worked in the industry for several years on the development and manufacturing of IVD products. And today I'll be speaking next to my colleague, Irati Mendia.
So hey, Sara. Hey, Sara. Hey, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Hopefully, we can give you some helpful insights to take into account when building a regulatory strategy. My name is Irati Mendia. I am a Medtech regulatory affairs consultant here in Alira Health, together with Sara and some other colleagues. And well, as Medtech consultant in Alira, we offer both regulatory advice for strategical and operational tasks for medical device industry. So prior to joining Alira Health, I was a regulatory affairs manager in medtech companies where I coordinated several departments to achieve the regulatory objectives of our products. So, yeah, Sara, I let you the word.
Thank you very much for your introduction, Irati. Next slide, please. The topic of today is an effective medtech regulatory strategy in the ever-changing regulatory landscape. Here you have the agenda that we are going to go through during the session. And also during the webinar, we'll have two polls, one at the beginning and the other one in the middle. They consist of one answer with multiple choice, of one question with multiple choice answers, and we will let you 30 or 40 seconds to answer. We'll really appreciate it if you can participate on those. So let's start with the first poll. And we were wondering, how long on average did it or is it taking you to register a product? The options are less than 2 years, between 2 and 5 years, more than 5 years, and I have not started yet. So we'll let you 30 seconds to vote. Hope you can do that. Yeah, here we have the results, and not all of you have started, but for those who already started, we can see that most of you take, well, the time for registering is between 2 and 5 years. And thank you very much for your participation. As your answer state, the taken time to register a product can be long. And we know that the time is the essence for the companies. As all of you know, it is necessary to meet the requirements of the regulations for all the products on the market, since the regulatory environment is designed to protect patients and ensure the quality of the product. Next slide, please. Although we know that the intention is present for all the manufacturers, it is difficult to be able to comply and be updated with all the requirements needed. And that is because the regulatory landscape is not static. Both the EU and the USA regions have recently introduced significant updates to their frameworks. These changes reflect the need to adapt to new technologies, the need to minimizing emerging risks, and also following global trends. I'll be starting with by a quick view of actual landscape of Europe region, and then we will switch to the USA. So next slide, please. In the European region, regulations are created and enforced through a multi-level system that involves the European Parliament, which is the legislative body that works with the Council of the European Union to approve or reject the proposed EU regulations. And also in some member states, there are local authorities. The local authorities oversee compliance with the EU regulations, but they also have their own additional local rules. The specific European regulations that govern par excellence across the region are the MDR and the IVDR. But we have to bear in mind that other regulations exist for different specific countries, such as UK and Switzerland. Today, we will be focusing on the MDR and IVDR because these regulations represent one of the most significant regulatory renovations in the EU region in the recent decades. Next slide, please. Now, in both cases, the notified body is crucial to the approval process for any medical device or in vitro diagnostic product. There are different notified bodies across the EU designated to assess the conformity of those products. We know that this is not new for the medical devices, but what is new is that all the products must be reassessed, although they previously obtained this conformity assessment. In fact, even the notified bodies has also to be approved to being able to confirm product assessment under MDR and IVDR. Every day, the number of notified bodies able to assess this conformity is increasing, but we are aware that the IVD products have not as many options as medical devices. Next slide, please. These regulations have raised the bar in terms of safety, quality, and post-market monitoring, but they also present challenges in terms of certification timeline and the availability of notified bodies. Next. The regulations became mandatory for new devices in medical devices and in vitro diagnostics products several years later after their publication. Next. And for those devices which were already on the market, the legacy devices, a transition time was offered. Since their publication, there have been many delays in these due dates for legacy device due to manufacturers could not reach the deadlines, and they were postponed several times. The need to delay these dates shows the difficulty on applying these new requirements of the regulations. Next. But yet, the EU Commission is aware of this difficulty, and that is why it has been giving alternative dates when necessary, as long as the manufacturers do their homeworks. The valid deadlines are written on the slide. If you have any questions referring to those dates, you can come back and ask us. Next slide, please. Here, we have listed recent updates of the regulations because I would like you to see the importance of being updated. The reason why new regulations and continuous updates of MDR and IVDR are issued is due to the rules show high complexity and difficulty when applying them. The number of updates is a reflex that the MDR and IVDR still have room for interpretation, and there exists the need for clarification. One example is the recent amendment of Article 10A, which provides some clarifications for both regulations. Also, the Medical Device Coordination Group, which issues the new or update European guidelines, is quite active by trying to clarify certain points of these regulations. I think that staying updated with them is key to optimize the time to obtain the conformity assessment of your product. But the clarification of the existing rules is not the only reason why your system is continuously working. They are also aware that the technology is evolving and you have lots of new innovative solutions. So new rules need to be issued to regulate these new technologies aspects, which are taking a huge importance in the healthcare world. One clear example is the use of artificial intelligence in medical device or IVD products. Those systems will have to comply with some mandatory requirements for trustworthy artificial intelligence. And they will have to follow new conformity assessment procedures before they can be placed on the EU market. So for those who uses artificial intelligence in its product, be prepared because you'll have to meet the requirements of this new regulation. As you see, that date can impact any device. So for those who are planning to reach EU market, please prepare and keep update your regulatory strategy to ensure the best rules. Of course, the same advice works for those who want to reach the USA market. And yes, in the USA market, the landscape found is a bit different than EU region. In the USA, regulations are created and enforced following a federal structure with the strong central oversight through the FDA. And the FDA regulates the 21 code of federal regulations. Specifically, the part of the regulation which is addressed to medical devices is the section from 800 to 898. The regulatory landscape for medical devices in the USA has also seen significant developments, largely driven by the FDA efforts to keep pace with innovation and also ensuring patient safety. Next slide, please. Here I have also listed recent updates of the regulations applying to the FDA for the same reason. The regulations are also complex and they are suffering modifications which can highly impact to the already marketed products and as well as the ones which are still on development. And between updates, we can also find some good news, such as finally the FDA has revised Part 820, referring to as the Quality Management System Regulation, which has been aligned closer to the ISO 13485. So great, because now if you are interested, it is easier to implement a QMS in place to meet the requirements of both regions. The FDA is also taking a closer look at the laboratory developed tests. So be careful if you own or are developing any in vitro diagnostic product, even though you are a laboratory. The regulation makes explicit that the IVDs are devices under the FDA. Also, due to the increasing number of software as medical device, yes, the FDA has also realized about that and has seen the need to protect the data and confidentiality of these software. So it has finally issued the final document of cybersecurity in medical device guidance. If you have a software, just be sure that you are compliant with this regulation. Another good news is that the FDA has closed the pilot of its Total Product Lifecycle Advisory Program, and it is going to expand the program to new kinds of device. The first office to be included is the Radiological Health and the Division of Ophthalmic Devices. And just for you to know, we have also realized that the FDA is working on improving its internal processes, such as the electronic submission templates to speed up their revision of the documentation, now applying to the 510K clearance pathway. Also, the process for submitting a small business determination request and the tracking medical device pre-market approval application and PMA panel supplements is getting easier, which is always good, seeing that FDA is also working on improving its internal processes. Next slide, please. Okay, now that we have pictured the current landscape of both regions, it is time to explore the key differences between the EU and the USA system. While both frameworks share the same fundamental goals, which are patient safety and product quality, they differ significantly in their approaches. These differences can affect companies seeking approval in both markets. So it's something important to consider if in your regulatory strategy to make your regulatory compliance path more straightforward. Next slide, please. One of the clearest differences lies in the competent authorities responsible for reviewing the documentation for the product conformity. We have already seen that across the USA, the FDA operates as a single regulatory authority, while the EU relies on this decentralized approach with national authorities and notified bodies. As seen before, there are multiple notified bodies across EU member states, and as different companies, there may have different opinions of certain aspects. And that is why some manufacturers struggle to choose between notified bodies. Besides, a difference which is an important enemy for the manufacturers who are trying to register the product in both regions is that although the regulations of both regions present a risk-based classification for the products, the regulations are different, meaning that although in one region the device is classified as class 2, in the other region it may present a different classification, meaning different requirements, meaning different lab tests, meaning more time. Well, this time is the first thing that can be reduced being aware of the updates and the specific needs to register a product, which can be done by having a strong regulatory strategy. Next slide. Yeah, we also find differences in the interactions that both regions allow to do when developing a product. Unfortunately, in the EU, no regular interactions are allowed with notified bodies apart from the submission of the device approval. Some national competent authorities, such as amidst from Spain and BfArM from Germany, allow specific interactions, but we have to know that they also consider their national laws. In specific cases, we can use an expert panel, for example, which offers some interactions to enhance your product. But it is not valid for every product. Your device must meet some specific criteria. A totally different landscape is found in the USA, where FDA allows a bunch of specific interactions to companies. The allowed interactions with FDA help companies in different aspects, such as the chance of asking for some doubts when the manufacturer is not really sure about, let's say, the classification of its product, the clearance pathway that apply to their device, or even the applicable preclinical test for its product. Another positive aspect that the FDA has is that it has two different powerful programs to accelerate the development and revision of specific devices: the breakthrough device designation, and the safer technology program. And in these cases, the device must also meet some specific criteria. Not any device can apply for these programs. Next slide. And of course, we also find differences between the two regions when checking the clearance pathway of your device. As you can see in the slide, the USA has different routes for registration the products. The applicable pathway depends on the product characteristic and its classification. For example, if there exists an equivalence product legally marketed in the USA, it can be used as a predicate device. So the manufacturers can take the 510(k) pathway, which is a faster path. It's a faster path because you can avoid some safety tests. So depending on the route that fits to your device, different requirements will apply, and specific preclinical studies must be done or are not necessary. On the other side, in the EU, new regulations is almost impossible to achieve the equivalence device, which could be done under the old regulation. So in the EU, the clinical evaluation is mandatory, although the equivalence devices are placed on the market presenting the same data. This means that product development can take longer for companies. And another huge difference is that the FDA has the timelines for each one of the clearance pathways defined in the USA legislation, but the EU has no timelines established. So the timelines can be packed with your notified body. And the positive thing is that the number of notified bodies available to assess conformity following MDR and IVDR has increased, which will facilitate the process in the EU and also will help decrease the waiting line for the product evaluation. Next slide. The regulatory environment is more interconnected than ever, and it is essential for organizations to stay ahead of these changes to ensure compliance and minimizing risks. In fact, for companies operating in this space, staying informed and compliant with these regulations is not just a legal requirement. It is also critical for maintaining its competitiveness and ensuring its market access. Besides, it also demonstrates the manufacturer's commitment to safety and efficacy, which build trust with healthcare professionals and patients. So building a strong regulatory strategy to accomplish with all the requirements is essential. It will allow you to be aware of similarities and differences, especially in testing and data analysis compliance for your product, the documentation that must be presented, and also the timelines. Understanding these nuances is critical for ensuring a success market entry strategy. And now I'll give the floor to my colleague, Irati.
So thank you, Sarah, for your fantastic explanations. I might need your help now, so be here, please. Before I go explaining the importance of having a strong regulatory strategy, we would like to launch a poll to taste the water a bit about what you think it's important when building a regulatory strategy. Yeah, so Sarah, I am unable to see the poll, so I don't know if you can see the answers and you can help me to check the results.
Sorry, I was mute. Now, can you
No worries,
see now?
thank you. The
results said that the first option, good knowledge of different regional regulatory standard, was voted for 53% of the audience. Use of recognized standard for evidence generation for the 41% of the audience, and consider regional differences in approval timelines for the 6% of the audience.
Well, thank you, Sarah, for reading it out loud, the results. Yeah, well, as we were asking for your personal opinion, there is no correct or an incorrect answer. And in fact, when building a regulatory strategy, all of these aspects have to be taken into consideration. So, well, the first step to start building the regulatory strategy will be to understand what is meant by it. So in Alira Health, we define the regulatory strategy as the detailed plan done in a document way that defines the fundamental steps to comply with the regulatory requirements necessary for the effective entry of the products into the market and its follow-up until the end of its useful life. This plan will help us to coordinate and organize all the necessary steps to fulfill the purpose in a sustainable and effective way, considering the budget, timelines, and the availability of the human resources. Due to the high complexity of the regulatory world, as Sarah has explained, This has become a must-have document, which we will have to go adapting it as new requirements come in. Believe me when I say that having this document is worth, and please stop or take your time to build it, because prior we start generating any evidence, any documentation, or with any administrative task, gathering all the regulatory requirements in one document, it will help us to validate the effort to be made to have or launch a product in the market. So we can plan how we are going to address all these requirements. So we can optimize like some steps, like doing tests together, or identify those requirements that for our own resources we cannot meet. So we can do like informed decisions, right? So if we will know if we can address, like, I don't know, we can do by our own our clinical trial, or we have to hire like another party to do this for us. So we can find these requirements that we cannot be met and put solutions so they don't convert, or they are not risks in the future anymore, and we don't have like headaches later. No, so planning, identifying risk and putting solutions can help us to reduce the time to the market when we want to launch a product, or reduce the costs when putting or having this product in the market. Once we start generating all this evidence, all this documentation, it will help us as a guide as a guide to how to go addressing these regulatory requirements one by one, and will ensure compliance, because as we have what we have written, it will be more difficult to be forgotten. So having seen what is meant by a regulatory strategy and which are the benefits it can bring us, we are now ready to start building a regulatory strategy. So which are the key aspects to consider when building one? So the first step I would suggest is to define the intended use and claims of your product, as this will directly impact on your product categorization and classification, and further define the requirement you have to meet for this. The next step, it would be identifying the market's regulatory requirements. So identify them, write them down, and plan how are you going to address them. Using these regulatory, these market regulatory authorities recognized guidelines or international recognized standards is a good manner to approach these regulatory requirements. So usual regulatory requirements of different markets are having a quality management system, as this system will define a lot of our processes and will help us to plan how the evidence will be generated and how it will be recorded. Also, it will help us to plan effectively and to show how your product will be verified and validated, so you can demonstrate that your product meets the requirements for the intended purpose that it was developed. Also, the information accompanying your product, as the labels of the IFU, or the post-market requirements. So so if we are planning to go to one or more market at the same time, we would recommend to identifying those aspects on which regulatory rules overlap, and also to identify where they differ, so you can harmonize as much those overlaps, and you can take into account the points where they differ. So in this sense, you can Yeah. So in this sense, you can align the framework. So as Sarah explained, the ISO 13485 is a recognized standard for a lot of regulatory authorities when building a quality management system. Also, you can create core documentations that will be accepted or will have for both or for both markets or for in the markets you are planning to go. So if a market A says I need to have like A, B, and C requirements, and the other market says me that I need to have B, C, and D, I will create core documents with A, B, C, and D requirements. Also, a plan for testing and how you are going to build the testing, the analytical, non-clinical, and clinical testing plan and strategy. And so you can use the same testing plans for the same testing plans and the same evidence for all the markets. And also plan for review timelines, because as Sarah said, you cannot engage with the regulatory authorities whenever you want, and different authorities will have their own timelines for documentation review and product approval into the market. And last but not least, keep constant and effective communication across your team. It's needed all of us to be aligned because a decision taken in like research and development department can directly impact the sales of your product. So yeah, in the top of these key aspects of how to build the regulatory strategy, we also wanted to share you some do and don'ts to do when building this regulatory strategy or when to market, as per what we have seen with our clients. So, what are the good practices and not such a good practices that they follow. So a mistake that we usually see, or it's common to see, is that taking for granted that the documentation that fulfills like one market regulatory regulatory requirements will be suitable for another market's regulatory requirements. So unless there is a mutual recognition agreement between the two markets, and as we already said, each market will have its own requirements, and so you should plan a strategy including all the geographical areas where you want to position your product, and just harmonizing those common aspects and having in mind where they do differ. Another common mistake that we see is to implement the quality management system late on product development. Currently, most of their regulatory laws tell the manufacturers to document all these steps as soon as we see like our idea is feasible, right? So to document the design and development plan, the design inputs, design outputs are mandatory. So start implementing a quality management system and as soon as you start developing your product, and so you can go doing this together instead of relying later on your memory. Yeah. So also, please do not define your product requirements or testing as you go along in the development or validation. It's a common mistake to see the manufacturers defining the general safety and performance requirements as they go through the process. But this can lead not to comply the real needs or to forget tests. Now that would end up in delays, increased costs, or as the design test will need have to be redone. Also, do not assume that you can contact regulatory authorities whenever it's convenient for you. Each one will have their own timelines for market approval. Yeah. Also, it's critical to prepare technical documentation as specified by the regulatory authority, and of course, in accordance to the applicable rules for your product. Remember that your submission will not be approved if the format is incorrect. So do not ignore the structure of the technical documentation is specified in the regulations. And last but not least, seek for regulatory advice whenever you are lost, or to check you are on the right track and avoid potential compliance issues. Yeah, seeking for guidance early can save you a lot of time and money in the long run. Yeah. So now that we have well, we share with you a lot of tips on how to build a robust regulatory strategy, but this is all theory. We want to share with you also some real cases on how implementing or having a regulatory strategy can really make a difference. No? So we are going to share some real case studies of our clients to see. So the first case study belongs to a Medtech company, which already had launched some products in the USA and came to us because they want to launch a borderline product already targeted as or categorized as a medical device in the USA market, and they wanted to launch as also as a medical device in the European Union within an aggressive timelines. So, well, we structured the work in 4 big modules, starting with the device categorization and classification analysis. As this was a borderline product, we provide a rationale why we thought or how we thought that this product could be categorized as a medical device, and we contacted with notified bodies to check that everything that this product would be accepted as a medical device in Europe. So once this done, and as this company already have generated a lot of documentation from the USA approval, we written down all the regulatory requirements that this product should meet in the European Union, and we started doing a gap analysis, identifying those documents or those requirements that this product wasn't meeting. So we gave to the to our client a strategy on how to start fulfilling these gaps. As in this gap analysis, we saw the need for a clinical study. We contacted Alira Health Medical Strategy and Biometrics teams to review the clinical trial this client already had done in the USA to check if this could be used or how this could be adapted to use in the European Union. So once this started, and as we know that notified bodies take their time to review and sign agreements to review the documentation, we contacted again those notified bodies that agreed that our product would be, that this client product would be recognized as a medical device, and we secure an agreement with a notified body to begin the MDR certification process. And we helped our client on preparing this documentation to submit the notified body. So for this project, our deep knowledge on both regulations, in the USA and European regulations was vital, as it allowed us to efficiently navigate the differences, ensuring the compliance in the European Union without unnecessary delays. So this company did have indeed a smooth and a cost-effective access into the European market. Well, the second case study belongs to a pharma company, which developed a laboratory-developed test, like that wanted to compare to wanted to be used as a companion diagnostic assay when this drug was launched in the market. As per they knew that the LDT for the LDT phase-out policy in the USA. And also they wanted to launch this product in the European Union and wanted us to give them some insight in China, as it was the next market they were planning to go. So for this project, the regulatory affairs, Medtech regulatory affairs team worked alone, and we divided the project in 3 main modules. So we started determining the new regulatory status of this test. We identified several classification possibilities in the USA and the European Union, and compared the current and the changing regulations to assess how much additional information would be needed to be generated from the data available as they had as an LDT to each new possible classification. So in other words, we determined the effort required for each of the new classifications, not to be made, like the data generation and so on. And also we made a high-level recommendation for China, outlining the main requirements to be complied. So once a client chooses the pathway they want to follow in each geographical area, we did a further gap analysis on the additional data to be generated and provided recommendation on the next steps to follow. So for a USA, a pre-submission meeting was suggested, as well as the possibility to plan and prepare for a breakthrough device designation procedure. And in the European Union, the steps towards preparing the technical documentations were described. Well, we, as in Alvira, we always try to keep as updated as possible with the latest regulatory changes. So this fact helped us to provide this company with not just one, but several possible ways to deal with this change. We also explained the work involved in taking each of these paths to ensure that the company could make an informed-based decision. In addition, we also like, and always if the client agrees, to get actively involved in the decision making or in defining which is the best decision to make. Yeah, and so yeah, we help over that. Well, prior to finish the webinar, I want to summarize some of the most important aspects about which we have talked today. So which are the take-home message for today? So mainly we can sum up in plan how to address these regulatory requirements. No? But yeah, so for this you have to take the regulation into account from the beginning, study the regulations and identify which requirements apply to you, so you can build a regulatory strategy, writing down these requirements and planning how you are going to address them. and by identifying potential risks early and find solution to be addressed, and so your way to the market or maintaining this product on the market can be easy, smooth, and cost effective. So yeah, thank you for you all for joining us today as we explore the key steps on creating a regulatory strategy. We hope this session has provided you with valuable insight to help you guide your approach. So now I leave the floor to Sarah to lead this question and answer session.
Thank you very much, Irati. It was thank you for your information, all the information that you have give us. If you can thank you. So we are now going to begin answering the questions submitted during today's presentation. And as a reminder, you can still submit questions through the question panel. Our first question is, have you used the breakthrough program and was it successful in spending up the clearance? Well, yes, we have conducted several BDD programs, and the good about the BDD is that if you are accepted, you active a very close relationship with the FDA with the possibility to receive constant feedback. Therefore, yes, it was very helpful to have regular contact with the FDA when developing such complex products. We have a second question, which is, do you always press up for a 510K? Pros and cons. Irati, do you want to answer it or should I go?
Well, yeah, I can go ahead. Well, the FDA has like this pre-submission meeting tools as a guide or as help for manufacturers. So yeah, prior you go to a 510K or whichever market approval you will gonna go, it's always well, we always suggest to contact one unless you are like really clear all the steps to follow.
Yes, I would complement also the
Right, sure.
answer. Almost always we conduct this press-up since at the end it is an opportunity to interact with the FDA reviewers, and it will review as well your device submission, and having feedback early on the project usually helps a lot to smooth the certification pathway and ensure if you are aligned with FDA expectations. The cons is that FDA may say something you would not like to hear, and also each press-up takes some time to prepare and receive feedback. Thus, even if the 510K seems straightforward, you will still need to conduct your own testing. So you would want to double check that, for example, with the FDA. And that's why we would usually recommend a press-up interaction, but needs to be studied case by case. We have another question, which is, yeah, I think this one is for you because it makes sense. Can you leverage clinical studies performed for your MD IVD in Europe for the FDA submission, even if you still need to do some in the US?
Well, yeah, potentially you could, but as we have talked now about the pre-submissions, it's always advisable to consult the FDA first to check if they would accept this these results or not, or you have to build like new information, right?
Right. Okay, great. Thank you for your answer. We'll keep on with the questions because we have still more. So they are asking, how do regulatory advisors ensure that coding, coverage, and reimbursement are considered when working with breakthrough technologies that may qualify for NTAP or pass-through payments? Well, we work closely with market access and reimbursement team in several projects to understand the requirements and try, for instance, to introduce some specific endpoints in the clinical trials we design. So overall, we would say that our advice is to work together with market access team and to start assessing these requirements in early stages to integrate it with the REC strategy. Hope that this answer is, I hope that the answer is answering the question. Okay, so another one says, could you please explain the main differences and aspects to bear in mind between accessories and medical devices? Do you want to answer that, Irati?
Yeah, sure. The main difference or the main difference between the medical device and their accessories is on their function. So a medical device would be used, or you can use a medical device on its own, while accessory is intended to assist the medical device, so it has not a proper medical device function per its own. However, bear in mind that also accessories are regulated under the same medical device regulations, although they might or they can be classified in a different manner from the medical device they are intended to assist. Yeah. So thanks for the question.
Great, thank you for to put light in this question. They are also asking, is there any preferred notified body? So when choosing a notified body, I think it depends on the manufacturers and also your interest. There's something that you have to bear in mind to pre-select the notified body. I think that it would be summarized in 3 points. One is make sure that the notified body, that you need a notified body, because there are some classifications of the products that they don't have to go through an audit, but although you have to be compliant with the MDR and IVDR. I mean, class 1 or class A devices will generally not need it. Then if you have checked that you need it, then you have to go to look for an accredited notified body. So we have seen that every day maybe not day, but the number of notified bodies are increasing. So you have to be aware which are the ones which are able to give you a conformity assessment for your product. And the third important point to pre-select this notified body is you have also be sure that the notified body accepts the language of your documentation. I mean, if you have it in English, there will not be a problem. But if it's in, for example, German or French, you should probably need to go to a regional notified body. So once you have this covered, then you have to look for the one which fits best for you. If your product is borderline, you could be classified, and it could be classified in different ways. You can look for a notified body that aligns closer with your classification approach. I mean, we cannot decide which class is your device because I would like to be that class. I mean, there are some criteria that you must to meet, but sometimes when it's borderline, it depends on certain aspects that the classification maybe moves to one place or the other. So you have to be aligned with your notified body and be just check that your selection is in that sense, and also define your priorities. I mean, cost money, speed for market approval. I mean, having fluid communications. You can check each notified body is independent, so they will have different ways of working, so you can also check on those. And I think that these are the the key points that you have to bear in mind if you want to select a notified body, but there's not a preferred notified body. It depends on the company and the manufacturer. So just contact various to check which one best match for you. Okay, let's move to the next question. It says, how do you think the new regulation overlaps or clashes with the pharmaceutical new regulation? Do you feel like answering it, Irati?
Yeah, sure. Well, if per the new regulation is understood the IVDR and MDR, in Europe, of course, they have like some common aspects as well, you have to implement a quality management system that will define your processes and your data and evidence generation plans and the mode of recording. Both ask to demonstrate the safety and efficacy of your drug or your medical device. So for demonstrating it, you have to conduct like different analysis, like verifications, validations, and or clinical trials and stuff. You have to also to conduct a risk analysis to check how can you mitigate any risk that this medical device or drug can conduct. But of course, there are like a lot of different aspects because, in fact, the products are categorized differently. So the approval pathway they follow or their categorization and classification, it's different. But in case, as Sarah said, you have like a borderline product that you are doubting if it's a like drug or a medical device, you have to check the primary mode of action, which will help you to check if your product is like a medical device or a drug. Yeah, that would be my answer. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Irati, for your answer here. Very much. And I think we have still time for one question, and I would read the next one, which says, what the difference of regulations between software as a medical device and software used in medical device or digital technology used in clinical study? Well, I will go for that because in some way I love softwares. So, but it's really a good question. And I think that before answering this question, it is important to understand the differences among software as a medical device, software used in medical device, or digital technologies. On one side, software as a medical device refers to a software which is intended for medical purposes without being part of a medical device. Let's put one example. That could be diagnostic algorithm, for example, or maybe apps for managing medical conditions. Then a software used in a medical device includes software that are integrated to a medical device, like the software incorporated in a pacemaker, for example. And the third one, the digital technology used in clinical studies, includes softwares or applications used to collect, analyze, or manage clinical trials. So the question was talking about key differences. So considering the differences in, let's say, its concept, different regulations are applicable. The software as medical device is regulated based on its intended use and risk classification to ensure the safety and effectiveness of the software results as any other medical device. Then the software used in medical device, so the one which is part, for example, of pacemaker, since this part of this medical device, it is regulated as this. I mean, as a part of the medical device itself. So the regulatory requirements will depend on the overall device classification, not just for the software itself. And the digital technology used in clinical studies may not be classified as a software, as a medical device, although it is like an application monitoring clinical data. but still it must comply with some regulatory standards, especially regarding for data privacy and good clinical practices, of course. And yeah, I think we have run out of time. Thank you, Irati, and thank you to everyone for attending today's discussion, Developing an Effective Medtech Regulatory Strategy in 2024. You will receive a follow-up email with a link to view a recording of today's webinar. We would also appreciate your feedback on the webinar. Please share it in the survey that will appear following the end of the webinar, and we will follow up the answers that we could not answer in this today. So thank you very much to all.